when I said that I love Socrates, I like the Socratic method. This also touches upon the way that I would teach a child. I know that Socrates didn't write anything down, and that what we have comes from the pen of Plato, which is probably the thing that I'm most grateful to Plato for. But I like the idea that when someone asks you a question, your first response is, well, what do you think? Especially, this applies to children and how to teach children. You find out what the person thinks, and then you use a follow-up question. In essence, you don't teach them, you aid them to teach themselves. You get them thinking. Off the top of my head, Daddy, Daddy, why does the rain fall downwards? Well, why do you think it falls downwards? I think maybe the rain likes the earth very much and wants to be in the earth. Well, does that toaster like you? No, don't be silly, Daddy, that hasn't got a mind. Well, do raindrops have minds? No. Right, so it's not about rain liking the ground. No, it's not. Well, let me tell you about a guy called Newton. That's what I like about Socrates. And the idea that true enlightenment can only come from within is... I mean, I have my own personal experience of this. I still am a dumbass. I know enough about philosophy to know that we are all dumbasses. But there are degrees of dumbassness. And I know that I believed a lot of things up to the age of 28 which simply weren't arguable to somebody or against somebody with more knowledge. And the more I realised that things that I had believed weren't true, the more I sought out knowledge, because as I've said before, I like winning arguments, and the only way to win arguments is to have evidence and factoids to throw into the debate. But when you're really trying to reach someone, which YouTube, you cannot do it. You have to answer each point as it comes up. It would take a 3-hour video and the most boring sentence structures ever made to try and create a hermetically sealed argument. Especially where philosophy is concerned, there's a great deal of, you're going to hate this. Whether you want it to be true or not, you have a great amount of the skill which is known as sophistry. You do have it. I dare say you are consciously aware of it, and you try to resist using that superpower. For those that don't know, the sophists were people who were trained to argue A, and then they were trained to argue with equal force for B, and they were used as advocates in court systems, rather like a lawyer who switches between defense and prosecution with equal force and equal glee. Now, Asrianok seeks truth while at the same time knowing that it doesn't exist. Sounds crazy, but I think that's okay. I understand the reason for accepting at the outset that truth can never be achieved. But I do think truths can be achieved. And religion does not want those truths, provided they contradict the belief system which they are trying to promote. This is why people like Galileo were at first protected, because their insights, I mean, Galileo did not invent the telescope, but he introduced it to Renaissance society, and it was seen as a great defence, especially for a port city like Venice, where you could see an invading fleet coming from a distance. So no one ruling at the time would have not seen the use of Galileo and the the benefit of giving someone like Galileo a certain amount of freedom and leeway to do what he did. It was a military decision. This man may make us stronger, we'll use him, we'll give him some leeway. But even though that was the paramount concern of the age, it was not enough to protect him when his observations began to oppose the beliefs of Christianity. When he saw the moons of Jupiter, that they were orbiting Jupiter, and that therefore not everything orbited the Earth, as had been stated in the Bible, he started to get a lot of shit. And that shit came down to death threats. And they weren't idle threats. And it wasn't going to be an easy death. Now, Astronaut, let's forget the science. Let's forget the philosophical debate. Let's hop in a time machine. And before we hop in the time machine, let's have a full and hearty meal. And then we'll get in the time machine. And you and I will go back. And you know where I'm going to take you. I'm going to take you to the villages where the wayward old lady is tied to a stake. Now, this is an appeal to the heart rather than the mind, and it's unfair, but I don't have to play fair because I'm not a philosopher. Tell me that you wouldn't see that woman screaming and hear the crackling of flesh and smell the air and not vomit. Tell me you wouldn't look around at the crowd of people humming incantations and crossing themselves and think this is madness. Think about the reality of where religious belief can lead. Now, we had a dark age, and we got out of it by scientific inquiry. But history can repeat itself. And as I may have said in other videos, that is my great fear. I don't believe that there's anything about our current knowledge, about the libraries, the books and the internet, which protects us from these fuckers getting the planet back and having the power that they once enjoyed over all of us. The only possible use that I can see for religion is one of consolation with life's great unfairness. The D word. The reason I would want to oppose it is because in the next 100 years the club of nations which have the capacity to launch nuclear war across global distances is going to explode. Pun quite intended. It's not just going to be the members of the club now plus Iraq. It's going to be almost all of them. The information which is spreading across the world, which is cornering religion, also carries with it the secrets of nuclear weapons and chemical weapons and biological weapons. I always thought that two secular societies would not go for mutually assured destruction, and that madness was seen for what it was, and it was its own guarantee. But when you have nations which are constructed upon the belief that there is something after death, and that is infinitely better than what we have here, then we are in peril, and that peril is going to increase. And although I do not want to remove comfort from a grieving parent or a grieving child, if it makes the world safer, then I must do it. And I think anyone rationally who can debate with these lunatics should do so.